Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us at Black Fashion World Foundation's inaugural Career Day. My name is Megan Garland, and I am a partner at Duane Morris, where I practice in the area of fashion and beauty law. I am very excited to welcome you today and ask that you lean into the experience, soak up as much as you can, because you will have the opportunity to interact with fashion industry leaders and educators and thought leaders. And really, this will be an opportunity for some of you to make your dreams come true. So I am just really excited about the buzz, about the energy that's in the air, and most importantly, that you are here to join us. Please enjoy the experience, and we look forward to seeing you as you make your mark and build your brand. Thank you.
And welcome back. I am here with celebrity shoe designer Ron Donovan, who is the founder, creative director, and chief shoe builder of Ron Donovan Footwear and Accessories. Good morning, Ron. Happy Saturday to you. How you doing?
I am great, Miss Carla Nelson. How are you, darling?
I am doing well. It is Saturday. It is day 2 of some power-packed conversations. I am looking forward to this conversation with you. Oh my goodness, thank you for being a part of this.
Well, I thank you for having me here because I have absolutely enjoyed watching the other interviews. Miss Carter was amazing. I mean, everyone has been absolutely amazing. I didn't get much done yesterday watching interviews.
Good.
Well, that's good. Hey, that's good for me, but I still got a bunch of stuff to do. So, gotta focus a little bit.
We're gonna talk about that because the life of a shoe designer, life of somebody in fashion doesn't stop. You all are designing all the time, so we, the end user, can wear the product. But let's talk first about your why. You have a compelling why. I like to ask people why did you start designing shoes, and why should people consider designing shoes?
Well, my entree into shoemaking was actually happenstance. The old adage that necessity is the mother of invention. Well, I had no thoughts of really moving into creating or designing, but I literally had a need. I wear a size 15 and a half, 16 shoe, and literally could not find anyone to make them for me, at which point, out of frustration, I was like, well, I'm going to teach myself how to make my own shoes. And I started doing the research and literally started tearing shoes apart. So my need and my why was really necessity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so if I understand correctly, you majored, was it architecture?
No, industrial engineering.
Industrial engineering. Okay. So you are a career changer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But, it's interesting because I only worked for literally a few years after graduating from college. And I just did not have the corporate mentality. I wanted something different. I had an experience that said, hey, I want to be in control of my life. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew what I was doing for my employers, and I figured that I could do that for myself. But I still wasn't sure what that was going to be. So I tried a number of different ventures that had, a modicum of success, but nothing major. And it really wasn't until I really started focusing on the shoes that I started to find kind of my way. And interesting enough, after I left corporate, you always think that you've got enough of a buffer to carry you for a period of time. Well, I kind of blew through that real quick. So I found myself
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I found myself in a position of really kind of figuring out what I was going to do to sustain. And oddly enough, I had some friends that got me into modeling for a bit. So modeling was actually how I kind of got myself turned around from the pit I'd gotten into after leaving corporate. And but it also led me to that why you were talking about, that necessity, because despite being clearly stated on my comp card, we had comp cards back in the day, the actual physical comp cards, my shoe size, I did a lot of runway stuff. So I would get to these events and there would be no shoes for me. I mean, they would have these 10, 11 size shoes. I'm like, I can't do that. And so I literally started having to carry around a huge bag of shoes with me every event that I went to, so to make sure I had something to wear. And out of that frustration, it just kind of was like, okay, I gotta figure out I'm gonna make myself some shoes. And that's how I started.
So do you believe that your engineering background helped you as a shoe builder?
You know, I'm not quite sure which came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know if my technical background gave me a logical approach, or if my logical approach kind of led me into my technical background. But I think that the two definitely work together. And, it allowed me to really get started, because what I did was literally started by taking shoes apart. I would literally deconstruct old shoes. And there really wasn't the internet. Now you can find a lot of information on the internet. There weren't classes, there weren't any of those things. I mean, I literally just started tearing shoes apart on my own. And I was a clothes horse going to work. So I literally had a shoe shop that I would go to literally every day to get my shoe shine. And as I was tearing these shoes apart, if I ran into a question, I built relationships with the guys that were working there. I just kind of call and say, hey, listen, how does this connect to this, or this connect to this? Why is this? And they would give me, a little guidance, and I just keep moving.
Okay. So when we talk about that though, and then you got into it, what are some of the skills that people need to have? And this is the thing. I'm just curious. Now, your shoes, Ron Donovan's shoes are, you red carpet guy. You call yourself a shoe builder. I'm interested in that. Why do you call yourself a shoe builder versus a shoe designer?
I'm actually, so some technical phrases, I'm actually a cordwainer, okay? Many people may be familiar with the term cobbler, right?
Yes.
So now cobbler is synonymous with a shoemaker or shoe builder, okay? But in the old days, originally, everything, like most things, there was a class system. Cobblers were repair people versus cordwainers actually made shoes from scratch. I actually make shoes from scratch. And my shoes are actually built much like a building. There's a foundation, there's framing, there's roofing, the whole nine. So we start out with the last. The last, for those who don't know, it's the mold that you might see, which that's the form on which we take the pattern and the upper from one-dimensional to three-dimensional. So it literally is built through a foundation of the insole, and then we add the sole. So I like to say that the process of putting it together really is construction. So.
So what do people need to know to construct a shoe? Do they need no math skills? What do they need to know?
Well, I think you do need some basic math skills. I mean, you need to be able to measure accurately. You need to have an attention to detail. What I found is that it took me not so long to learn how shoes were made and how to make them, but what really took the time was perfecting what we call the hand, that precision, and that's a part of doing. That's a part of doing. You really have to be patient. I've heard one of the themes that I've heard from most of the speakers is that you have to be patient. You have to be deliberate in moving forward. And like anything else, you have to really be focused on what you want to do and go step by step by step.
Yeah. If you had to write a job description for shoe designer, shoe build, but your shoe, you're custom made, what would you put in that, or what will you put in that job description for someone that they have to do, their day-to-day life, their requirements?
Well, it's interesting because so maybe this is important to kind of define. I actually am a shoemaker and I have my own brand. All right. There are a myriad of jobs within the shoe industry, from design, there's creative stuff, there's technical stuff. I kind of incorporate a lot of that for myself, right? So if you're looking to create your own line, you may need some or all of it, right? Depending on what your job, what you really want to be. There are people who don't want to necessarily touch shoes. They just want to design them. So that's a real creative deal. I'm kind of a spread. I'm a little bit creative. I know what I like. I have my eye, but then you've got these innovative, creative people that I marvel at, because I'm going, wow, I wish, like a Ruth Carter. I mean, that's creative at a level that I'm going, wow, that's when you get into, you're making stuff that's never been seen before. And, but that's next level creative. Then you've got people who may not be as creative, but they really like working with their hands. They like getting in and cutting the leather or lasting the leather or making the patterns. There's so many steps in this. And literally each one of those can be a career in and of itself, right? You've got good design, you've got pattern making, you've got lasting, you've got finishing, then you've got selling. You've got all of these basic aspects of creating a shoe and getting it from concept to market. So in my case, I've had to develop a little bit of all of this. Yeah. So I create all of my designs for my shoes. And I typically focus on what I see that I like and then figure out what's wrong with what I see. In other words, I like that style. I saw a woman wearing this and I was like, I really like that, but what's my little
that
stank?
Custom piece.
Yeah. What little stank am I going to put on it? What R&D stank am I going to do to it? So it's like, I take it and shift it a little bit. And, I guess some of my technical background is such that, over the years, you have relationships with women and they're wearing high heels and they're going, well, I got to wear my thongs into the event, or I got my thongs in my, or can you go get the car because I can't walk? And I'm going, okay, so how do we make these shoes as functional and comfortable as they are?
Please tell me.
Good looking.
Because I don't want my feet to hurt. I want to be cute, but I don't want to hurt. Talk to me.
Well, and that's where also the technical stuff comes in. I think another thing that I've heard is research. We have to really research what it is we want to do and how we're going to do it. So when I started to look at what makes shoes more comfortable than others, right? Women would ask me, well, are your heels comfortable? And my response is, comfort, high heels really don't go together because it kind of defies physics. You've got all of this weight coming down on a slope. It's not going to be too comfortable. However, I make my shoes as comfortable as they possibly can be. And some of the things that I do with that, as far as my women's high heels, is making sure that the body is directly over the heel, that the weight is centered. That's in the heel placement, making sure that the last again being the form of the shoe, the entire shoe is relegated, or the comfort and the styling of the shoe really depends on the last, right? The last will give you the right arch support, that right line, that little bit, that sexiness in how it forms and shapes your foot. That's the thing. So, you know, it's all, again, it's attention to detail. So I decided that I was going to make shoes as comfortable as possible and as high quality as possible and as stylish as possible. So that's the intersection of, that's the Ron Donovan experience.
You know what? Okay, that means I got to try a pair of Ron Donovan shoes, but Lord help my pocket.
Hey, well, you know what? It's interesting because we're just a little bit behind. Now you got a friend in the industry, so you know that makes things a lot easier. Hey, everything is about relationships. Everything is about relationships.
Look, this is the thing. I've always said I wanted somebody. I have a pair of sneakers, Nike, Hirachi. Forgive me, Nike, if I'm saying it the wrong way. But the sole of that shoe is so comfortable. So I've always said I want somebody to take the sole out of their shoe and put it in a high heel. So now I got to try the Ron Donovan shoe and see if maybe that's not what I'm thinking. You might have me all set. But you said something about.
Hey, disclaimer. I'm not making, you know, Hirachis, okay? You'll get a balance there. You'll get a balance.
Want the sole out of that shoe. Oh my goodness. But you
have to remember that is a running shoe. Right?
Oh, okay. I know, but it feels so good on my feet. But talk about that.
I think we can make you feel good, feel sexy. I think we got you covered there.
Then you're the man. That's why they call you Ron Donovan. So, Ron, you hit on something though. You talked about quality. Mm-hmm. How important is the quality in making that shoe? And how do people go about making sure they're getting top-notch quality? You know, and I'm asking a person who's a celebrity shoe designer. Your shoes are on red carpets. So talk about how do you make sure that quality is there?
You know, it's interesting because it's a challenge. You know, any entrepreneur knows, and definitely creative knows, that there's a balance between the business of what we do and the creative vision that we have. So you'll find that most creative, successful creatives typically have some type of business partner, right? That says, hey, what you want to do is too expensive. It doesn't make our profit margins. And that. So there's that constant battle between the left brain executive and the right brain creative, right? Well, interesting enough, I'm 52-48 left brain, right brain. So I'm like kind of split down the middle. So I have those conversations with myself. I'm constantly going back and forth with myself. And I am always falling to the side of quality, right? But what is interesting is that the industry is shifting. See, luxury, there are several components that made up luxury: exclusivity, style, price point, and uniqueness, right? So a lot of people who bought luxury were looking for quality, right? Unfortunately, the mindset of the consumer has shifted a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now that focus on luxury is not as much on quality as it is on, I hate to say it, value adding to me. What does it say about me that I can wear this recognizable brand? It's all about, I can afford it, you can't. Everyone wants to kind of, for a lot of people, that's become more of the motivation towards luxury versus quality. However, for me, that's just foundational. It doesn't matter what I do, I have to have quality product. And so for me, that is foundational. Finding the balance of that quality versus the price points is always challenging. When you look at, there are a lot of brands out here that look good. Yeah. You know, there are a lot of shoes that I look at, I'm going, wow, that's nice looking. Is it a generational shoe? Are you going to have that shoe for years and years and years? No. Because the industry is kind of geared now season to season. That's where they make their money. They want shoes that hey, these shoes are going to start deteriorate by next season, and you're going to want the new things. So the quality has kind of suffered a bit in that sense, in general. So
this is good because you just said something. Well, you said a lot of things that are important, but I want to home on the fact that you talked about that season to season, and that shoe lasting, and people knowing, that's that forecasting piece. People knowing that we're gonna make the shoe to last this long, almost like the cell phones. By such and such a time, it's gonna wear out. You got to buy a new one. So,
right.
How did you educate yourself on forecasting to plan? That planning aspect of the business.
It's interesting because once again, this was never a career goal for me. It really kind of evolved. So a lot of what I learned through trial and error. And there were a lot of errors. So, trial by fire. So yeah, you kind of have to figure it out as you're in it. Again, even as I was making shoes for myself, I had no vision of making it a business. I just had I played basketball in college as well. So some of my old teammates were in the NBA and had big feet as well. And they were like, well, dude, where are you getting those? I'm like, well, I'm making them. They're like, yo, I need some shoes. And that's kind of, I was like, you know what? My business started out 100% men's custom stuff, right? So again, my process was kind of natural. I think that with most things, you now have to catch up with your knowledge. Once I decided that it was going to be a business, then I had to sit down and start doing some research. I had to, talk to people. I had to educate myself. I had to get, my education didn't come from a formal school setting, an FIT or Parsons or Pratt, and any of these. I did it by doing. And there are some advantages to that, but there's some drawbacks to that as well. So I think for someone who wants to or decides that they want to do this, I think it's important that you get an education. Now, whether that's a formal education or mentors, that's important. And you need different type of mentors. Yeah. As I said, I started making shoes on my own, and I got to the point where I was making pretty good homemade shoes. You know those homemade dresses that you go, oh, she made that at home. This guy, yes. the hem is a little, yeah. She made that, or he made that. Well, that's how kind of my shoes were for a while. And again, the blessings of my life. I met two gentlemen that became my mentors. Older gentlemen, they were in their 70s. Between them, they're both from Trinidad. They had between them over 100 years worth of shoemaking experience. And when I met them, I said, the guy he said, I heard you were, I was in one of my suppliers' shop, and he asked me, I heard you say you make shoes. I said, yes. He's like, I do too. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I've been making them for years. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, so now I'm looking for someone to help me make my shoes. And I'm all excited. I'm like, well, where's your shop? He's like, oh, I work out of my garage. I said, oh, okay. And immediately, this is where we see something that's not always the case, right? Perception is a dangerous thing sometimes. So I just kind of let it go. I gave him my card. We exchanged information. And he called me literally like for 2 weeks straight. Finally, I said, okay, I'll come out and check you out. It took me an hour and a half to take the train out to the middle of Queens. Had to take, back then they had the dollar van. So I had to hop in the dollar van from the train station, get dropped off, blocks away from his address and walk, right? So I remember it was a nice summer day. So I go and I walk, and he had the door open. I could hear, as I approached the driveway, I could hear the hammering. And as soon as I hit the door, I was like, oh my God, this is it. He and another gentleman, there was Mr. Sandy and Mr. Neville, and they were in there making shoes, making shoes. And I was in heaven. I was like, I immediately knew that these were guys that I wanted to connect with. So they were the guys that, you know, at that point, I started literally taking that ride to Queens every day to work with them.
What?
And I did that for months. And finally, at a certain point, you know, I said, hey guys, I want you to come and work with me. I'm going to get a little workshop in Manhattan because I need a place where I can bring clients or whatever. And we kind of partnered, moved their equipment that they had into my little shop in Soho for a minute. And that's where we made shoes. And it's an interesting thing. We talk about quality. Here's where the divide came between Mr. Neville and Sandy and me. And that was that they had been accustomed to working with materials that were hard to get. They used whatever they could find. I was bringing to them the vision of a higher clientele, a higher price point, a more luxury product. So we would often sit in the shop and have these heated discussions of, listen, guys, Sandy in particular, Sandy was the cutter and the stitcher, and Mr. Neville was the laster and the finisher, right? I would have to have these discussions with Sandy. I'm like, Sandy, there's a blemish on that skin. You got to cut around that. He's like, but if you cut around it, you waste all of this. I'm like, it's okay. That's the quality. That's the attention. You're looking at leathers that don't have blemishes. You know, you're getting the best. There is a waste. And that's another reason why luxury costs. You can't always maximize every inch of the skin. There is a lot of waste. So again, the focus has to be on quality.
This is good because so much in that. Yet what I'm seeing is the fact that you had a different type of creativity. They had some wisdom that they were able to take you under their wing and help you get. So that's the importance of having those people that are willing to pour into you. And if I understand correctly, you teach classes yourself now.
I do, absolutely. I've now taken, again, necessity is the mother of invention. I looked at what my necessity was, and now I've created my shoemaking classes for those who want to know how to make shoes. And even if you don't want to know how to make shoes, it's important to understand how shoes are made because that impacts your design. It's like they're architects. You mentioned the architects. I have an incredible respect for architects. The architects at Tech were the crazy folks, but they were hours putting stuff together. But it's interesting, the good architects have to be able to take their vision and make it practical and they have to realize it has to be able to actually be made. So, you know, that's the balance. If you're going to design, whether you're designing for your own brand, whether you're designing for Nike or one of the other athletic brands, or if you're designing for a major luxury brand, or if you're designing for the mass market, no matter what corporation you might go into, you become a better asset when you can design things that work for the people who have to actually implement it.
That's good. Oh Lord, that's a tweetable. I didn't catch it. I'll have to go back, but that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes difficult if you're designing things that the engineers are going, I don't know how we're going to realize this, right? But if you have the knowledge of how the shoes are made, it kind of gives you a little bit, you know, we don't want to close down your creative parameters, but it takes you from here to maybe here. And then the engineers can actually work in here, you know? Yeah. So it just allows you to work more and develop a product that's probably a little bit more marketable and easier to realize.
So anyone who's interested in taking those classes, there's the career talks. In the career talks profiles, you can access Ron's bio and his website information. I encourage you to go there to find out more. So Ron, let's talk about, because you, excellent share. Thank you for sharing that about those mentors. Mm-hmm. Then we want to talk about people seeking mentors, seeking opportunities. What are some of the best practices you would say that they should use in seeking people to assist them? And what are some of the things that they probably should not do in seeking assistance?
Well, again, I'm going to repeat some of the things that I've heard over the last day. Audacity, humility, initiative, right? So one of the first places to start, or organizations like Black Fashion World Foundation, you need to connect yourself and place yourself in environments where there are people with your type of vision. Life is about relationships. No matter what it is you're doing, it's about relationships. So you want to align yourself with like-minded people, right? From there, I'm a very spiritual person in the sense that, you know, I believe that when I pray, I get directed, you know, when and oddly enough, I have to actually go, wait a minute, I'm praying for this. If that's what you have for me, give it to me, because I end up getting a lot of stuff that I prayed for that wasn't for me. So I have to be real careful with that. So, but I kind of back up and go, I think I want this. If this is for me, I need you to lead me in a certain direction, right? So I start to go down that path. And by focusing and asking the question leads me to organizations. Then you start identifying it. You start making research. You start looking for folks. Go, who's doing what I want to do? You know, if I want to be a psychologist, I'm going to look for someone in the fashion psychology arena. If I want to do costumes, I'm going to look for someone who's winning Academy Awards for costume design. I'm going to find those people to try to emulate and learn from. Then I'm going to have the audacity to reach out with them humbly to kind of seek what they know. I'm going to be clear about what I need. This is what I need. And then I'm going to be persistent in making those requests. And I love the old saying, some will, some won't, so what next? If one doesn't work out, you go down your list. Prioritize your list of your 10 optimum mentors, and you just go down your list. You know, somebody, and you don't stop until you get to someone that wants to pour into you, willing to pour into you.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's very good. Let's talk career change.
You're a great interviewer. You're making me think about stuff. I'm going, okay. You know, Carla's pulling out stuff here that I'm having to kind of go, you know, because I do a lot of just moving, and you know, the old saying, purpose-driven life. I like to say I'm seeking and moving towards more of a purpose-flowing life. When you start to get aligned with what you want to do, and things start just kind of coming to you. You know, you have a vision, you make a plan, and then you kind of flow. You know, you actually don't even have to drive the car anymore. Car, you kind of sit back and let the car move and drive. So.
Let's talk about the money.
Okay.
I don't ask people what they make. That's no one's business unless you're publicly owned and you want to disclose that. Mm-hmm. But what I do ask, because I know that people want to know, is a realistic range that people can expect. I mean, you were a career changer. You shared, and thank you for being transparent of sharing about the story, you know, your modeling, how you started out, and, you know, hey, you were starting out. What can people expect? Mars is the limit because we've reached there now, but starting out in the shoe design industry, what can they expect? And progression marks, you know, midways and so forth.
Well, okay. So how do I put this? I'm real excited because I'm up to eating 4 days a week now. I mean, when I hit 5, I've made it. So, that's my benchmark. How many days a week can I really eat? No, seriously.
That's
It's
good.
like any other. Hey, a little levity, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Don't. But
this is, we have to be real, and we're gonna do something on financials. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But no, it's interesting. As with most entrepreneurs, right? There's a difference if you are trying to build something versus if you're going into a work environment, right? Though that pricing, those salaries are quite different, or the potential, is quite different. I can speak from the entrepreneurial side more so than from the corporate side, because the corporate money is really about supply and demand. It's really about your expertise and how you sell yourself. You start out, as Ms. Carter talked about, being an intern, and then maybe you take an entry-level position. But you can ultimately, I know designers that are making high 6 figures, and then if you elevate to a level of a creative director or something like that, again, the sky's the limit and beyond. It depends on what your vision is and what your passions are. I like to say that there's P2LA, purpose, life, livelihood, alignment. Purpose, life, livelihood, alignment. That's when you really get to a point of the money kind of comes at that point, right? When you figure out what you want to do, your life aligns with that. And now you can actually figure out how to monetize it. That's the ultimate for me.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting. And with that comes the money, right? So let me stay on point. I have a tendency to kind of go tangential. So you have to reel me in if I start going too far left, Carla, but as an entrepreneur, there are ebbs and flows, literally, I started to do really well. I started getting real momentum in the industry, and then I got ill. Yeah, I'm blessed to say that I'm a cancer survivor, but I ended up having to really shut down my business because my business was me. I did not have a real team, so that's another thing when you start building a business. Businesses that have longevity, I now have started to develop my team because I need a business that operates if I'm not here, right? So that's when you got, that's when you can become an owner versus a worker, so to say. Right now, I got to show up, I'm a worker. But fortunately, I work for myself. But the money can be excellent and it can be challenging. So really, I don't want to sound like I'm skirting the answer, but it really is from 0 to anything that you make it. And that's why I love the entrepreneurial aspect of it, because it really was kind of determined by my focus, my efforts, and my vision.
So when we talk about, and I'm glad you went to that entrepreneurial piece, what are things that people need to know if they're considering that entrepreneur? We have an age range of individuals who registered for this event between 18 and 44. What do people need to think about on that independent track? What are the skills they need to have on that independent track? Is it accounting? Is it legal? I know sitting behind the scenes, I got to know a piece of that, the marketing. What do you say about that?
It's
especially being that one person.
Right, exactly. Wow, there's so many lessons that I've learned, right? The first is that when you talk about the 18-year-old versus the 45-year-old, they're slightly different things, because the 45-year-old is likely making pivots in life, right? So versus the 18-year-old. What I find in coaching, and this is interesting because it's kind of a segue. Carla has mentioned it, but you've mentioned it, but beyond Ron Donovan Footwear and Accessories, I also have a coaching practice, the Soul Strategist. And literally, I would say that's where I found my purpose. I have a passion and a skill for the shoemaking, but at a certain point, I kind of lost my purpose with the shoes. And I didn't realize that that was the case until not too long ago. COVID was an interesting blessing for me, because when my factories in Italy started to shut down and I couldn't really do some of the business that I was doing, I started to have to think about pivots. And I realized, and people started to point out to me, that I've been coaching for years, kind of pro bono. Yeah. And it was suggested that I started thinking about doing this more professionally. So I've done that, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But basically, yeah, what that led me to was that when I talk to 18-year-olds, one of the things that I tell them is that when they go to school and you're focused on this thing, and they go, well, I don't know why I should take that, or I don't know why I should take that, I'm not going to use that. Well, school has, I think, two options for you. If you're looking at, there's a way to go through school if you're looking to be an employee, and there's a way to go through school if you're looking to be an entrepreneur. If you're looking to be an employee, a specialized employee, you can be narrow focused. If you're looking to be an entrepreneur, you've got to soak in everything, because inevitably you're going to need all of those skill sets at some point in your entrepreneurial career, right?
That's good.
So you've got to start looking. You're going to need to know about distribution. You're going to need to know about forecasting. You're going to need to know about sales cycles. You're going to need to know about the accounting. You're going to need to know about those things, particularly starting out. The blessing is, and this is another step where you have to learn, there's a point where it's more beneficial to find experts in those areas to do that for you. That's the team I was talking about, versus trying to learn all of those skills yourself. And even if you've learned those skills, there's a certain point where implementing those skills on your own is probably not as efficient as bringing in someone else so that you can focus on your primary thing, which is designing and creating, right? And for the older person making a pivot, I think at a certain point, it's about what makes me happy, what feels good for me, what do I want to be doing with my life? You know, how important is the money versus my satisfaction? And to be able to balance those things, and then know that there's going to be a process. One of the things I like to say, overnight success generally takes 7 to 10 years.
Oh, that's a tweetable. Overnight success usually takes 7 to 10 years.
Yeah, you know, how many actors, musicians, athletes do we see? And we go, where did they come from? Only to find out their body of work is extensive. They've been doing stuff. They've been doing public theater. They've been doing, you know, independent film. They've been doing all these things that we just didn't see until they had that breakthrough.
Right.
So I would say to that, I would say, get as much widespread knowledge about the industry as you can. And then you might have to do a bit on your own, but at a certain point, it becomes important to start delegating those responsibilities to capable people, building a team as an entrepreneur, because publicly traded businesses don't buy an individual. They buy the team. They buy the systems.
That's so good.
If that's your exit plan, that's all I got.
That's good. All right. So what question? We'll take a few questions, but I'm going to give 2 more from me, one now and then one in closing. Okay. What are some of your daily habits that have made you a success and help you maintain the success and will help you grow to the next level? So what are some of your daily habits?
Interesting enough, that kind of split mind that I have, I'm constantly challenged. So I've got to really, I struggle with making sure that I'm disciplined. Um, I can get distracted relatively easily. So I have to really make sure that I have my time kind of outlined. I think you know firsthand trying to catch up with me. And as an entrepreneur, there are always things, despite the best planning, there's always stuff that's going to come up during the course of the day that you got to pivot. So part of being an entrepreneur is also being light on your feet. You know, I'm a firefighter. You know, constantly the alarm can go off at any point during my day that I've got to adjust. So that's important. So for me, it really is making sure that I've outlined what I need to do, when it's due, and prioritize. And also making sure that there's some self-care in there, you know, because, you know, I love this quote, Zach Galifianakis, don't kill me because I can't pronounce his name. I saw a meme that basically said, you know, you don't have to grind all the time. You've got to grind efficiently. You've got to take care and get some rest so that you can be at your maximum efficiency. And that resonated for me because that's a challenge for me. You know, I'm constantly going. I'm extremely nocturnal. So I've got to always remind myself to get the discipline, keep the discipline to take care of myself, which includes rest and freeing my mind, having something to do outside of just the work.
Couple of questions. What is your favorite shoe design?
My favorite shoe design? My favorite shoe design. Well, interesting enough, I think I mentioned, I started out making 100% men's shoes. My business shifted probably to like 80% women's shoes. And now we've kind of leveled at probably about 60-40 men's to women's shoes, right? So obviously, most of the things that I create, for instance, most of the clothing that I wear is my own. I design myself. I have a tailor that makes all of my stuff because I have a clear vision of what I want, right? So pretty much everything I design is from my eye. In other words, I know what I like to see on women. And like I said, I try to say what I like on women, keeping in mind all the technical stuff. So I love women in high heels. I think, but I also love a woman in some amazing flats, the right flats that accentuate her feet. And that's key, understanding what your attributes are and accentuating those, and maybe thinking about what your challenges are and kind of masking those as much as possible. And I love that about clothing and footwear. So for me, I love shoes that accentuate women's feet. And for myself, it's interesting. All I wore in the old days were black and brown shoes, dark. Now I intentionally wear colorful shoes. I wear a lot of gray because it allows me to play with the color of my footwear.
Okay. And then, oops, what did I hit? One question is, well, it's really two, and then we'll close out. Do you make shoes for women's size 12 and a half? And do you plan on making shoes that are available to the mass market?
Interesting, both questions. The first question, absolutely. My niche has always been the extreme sizes, extremely small and extremely large. Again, I'm sympathetic, you know, I'm a 15 and a half, 16 guy. So yes, I can make, I don't always do a lot of inventory. My business now is more made to order, more bespoke stuff. So yes, I can make pretty much any size that someone might need. As far as the mass market, yes, I've worked on some projects where I've actually designed some private labels, mass market collections for some other folks, other brands. And yes, I am considering and working on doing some mass market stuff for the Ron Donovan brand.
This is great. I just want to mention as we're closing out this career talk segment that you want to make sure you join us this evening at 7:45 precisely. Ron, the sole strategist side of Ron Donovan, will be delivering an incredible message to summarize the last 2 days that we've experienced. So looking forward to that. We will be back shortly, 12:30 with Sheena Butler talking about fashion media. Ron, as we close out this segment, and also I want to make sure everybody visits the marketplace too. I think I mentioned from the chat a few moments that we got some great vendors out there. We've got Dress for Success. They have Franklin, celebrity stylist Franklin Myrtle in their booth. You want to go in, you can chat one-on-one with him. We've got Lisa McFadden Millinery. We've got Dr. Tamika Ellington. We've got Sheen Magazine. I know somebody mentioned wanting to connect with Sheen on some things. You want to do that as well. You can send them messages if they're not in there right now. Ron, and closing out, food for thought. What are some things we've got, right, like 5 minutes. What are some things that people, after hearing this career talk, should do to pursue a career in shoe design, shoe building, and just in general, what final thoughts would you leave?
I think, generally speaking, I think when one starts to look at their right livelihood, like that phrase, the right livelihood, I think finding one's right livelihood starts with really evaluating what the individual wants, what makes them happy, what feels good. You know, you want to think about, do I want to be in an office by myself? Do I want to be out in the public? All of these things are necessary to think about before you start to make a career decision. There needs to be research. What do these careers entail? What do they actually look like, right? And once you find something that you think interests you and aligns with your right livelihood, then it's imperative that you start looking for opportunities to experience that, i.e. mentors, internship programs, so that you can get a taste of what it is to really go, do I like this before I start committing 20 plus years to it? You know, you don't want to be in a situation where you put all this effort into something only to realize, I don't really like this, or it doesn't fulfill me. It doesn't move me. I think Miss Carter spoke about the fact that when you love something, it's the old saying is, if you love it, it's never work. You know, I like that premise. So I think it's imperative that you figure out what you want, figure out what careers might give you that. You balance that with, what are my skill sets for this career? Do I have them innately, or can I develop them? And then go test it out. Get focused, get that persistence, get the audacity, keep the humility to ask for help.
Yeah. Phenomenal. Thank you, Ron Donovan. Everybody, we will see you back at 12:30, and we will also see Ron Donovan back at 7:45 tonight to close out Career Day. Talk with you soon. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Carla, for having me. This is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.